Well, I think it's 10:30, so we'll go ahead and get this started. So just so everybody's aware, this is recorded, and we do upload these to a YouTube channel, and then they get shared on our website on the alumni page. And we do have quite a few people who, though they can't join us for the actual chat, sometimes they get in and watch the videos after the fact and send us comments. And so to all of our later viewers, hello and thanks for watching. Just really quickly, I'm going to ask maybe John and Steve, and if you guys just want to say hello and where you're calling in from, then we'd love that.
I'm John Fishback. I am in Springfield, Missouri, and I teach at a community college. And we just had a professional development on AI, and that's why I decided to sit in this morning.
Good. And Steve, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Stephen Anderson. I live in Lawrence, Kansas, where you're coming tonight, Katie.
Yeah.
And I can't go to your event tomorrow because it's sold out.
It's true. It did sell out. Yep.
So yeah, I'm retired. I'm a Southwestern grad. I'm retired. I'm just very interested in the subject and probably have nothing to contribute. I just want to listen and hear what's going on.
Good. Well, we're here. We're sure glad you're both here. Ashley, before we get going here at the beginning of the call, you might just, especially for Steve and anybody who's watching this in the next couple of weeks, you've got an event coming up in Kansas City. You might just go ahead and promo that.
Yes. Let me look at my
I'm sorry, I put you on the spot.
The 19th.
The 19th? The 16th.
Yeah,
March 16th, we've got an event at Parlor in Kansas City. It's alumni meet and greet, and we've got a private room. President Liz will be there, and it'll be pretty casual, just kind of hang out with fellow builders.
Yeah, good. All right, and with that, I'm going to hand it over to Emily to introduce herself. And so just a bit of background, Emily, and how you found yourself piloting the Deets Memorial Library at Southwestern College.
Yeah, well, I'm very, very happy to be here. This is my second school year as library director. This was an amazing opportunity that I heard about and called JK, who I had worked with in the past. I was a teacher at the high school for many years and then was currently the library media specialist. And we just thought it would be a good fit. And I've absolutely loved being part of the Southwestern community. And it is a very interesting time to be a librarian, as you can imagine. So never a dull moment, and trying to carve out as much time as I can for professional development because the world is changing daily. So I'm not sure, Katie, what else would anyone be interested in knowing about me?
No, I mean, I think that's a good intro. So I guess John in particular, he's already kind of launched off with an area of interest regarding AI. And so I know you've got a lot to say around this area and some interesting things that have in developments in recent months. So maybe talk a little bit about how we're embracing AI and helping our students understand its value and implications.
Right. Well, this is a huge topic that everyone in education is having right now. Everyone in higher education. It's such a big, I can just kind of launch in. Is there a particular area or question where we should start the conversation, John?
Sorry. So one of the things I do now from this professional development, and I kind of want to sit in for this. I read now a daily newsletter from the Neuron. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I am. I do take it, but I don't read it daily. I should.
Yeah, and then there's another one called Ethan Malik, One Useful Thing, and that's more targeted toward education. But I mean, it's this, as you said, this changes so quickly. And of course, I teach nurses. And so we teach a lot of online courses, and I'm going to teach. In fact, I'm teaching two this summer, and I'm really worried. I teach all seated right now. I teach a physiology and a nutrition class, but they're seated classes, and so
Yeah.
I can really control what's going on. But our online people are really struggling because everyone, the students are, of course, using AI for everything. And so we've really had to scramble to make some adjustments
Right.
with all that. And that, you know, our concern and why I was really on here is that, um, what we talked to were our administrators because our students are ahead of us and we're not putting enough money into access to things like chat and Claude and so forth. And I hate that we should not be behind our students. And we have students that can afford to get on this stuff, and yet as a we're getting ready to move our library into a new building, and they've cut the size of that library significantly. We're not going to have a lot of books anymore, which is also a concern to the faculty.
Right.
And we do have plenty of access to journals, but that's the faculty using that's not really our students as much. Although I have a big research component in my nutrition course because they need to know what they're looking at as
Right.
far as that. But that was one of my big things is Southwestern giving you enough money to keep ahead of the curve.
Well, again, this is my favorite topic right now, and we'll launch in because there's so much in what you've just said. In terms of collection development, this changes everything. We are just not spending money on books. We have course reserves, and we buy books upon request in certain situations. Recently we went through the accreditation for our nursing program, and we had money in there for some print, and they said, save it. That is not how the students are using the information. So we are really focused on our digital collection, database access, and whatnot. So that is a very different thing. Just to your point about libraries no longer, I went in another college's library once and I had to try pretty hard to find the books because the stacks we've got reasons why ours are probably fine for a while, but we've got wonderful stacks here that people enjoy. But I wonder if it isn't more for aesthetic reasons now. And we have a lot of community members who like to come in. You talk about staying on top of AI. First, I guess I want to say, maybe tell you something you already know, but to make you feel better, we are all in this together. I was just listening to a Think program on NPR. They were talking to the person at NYU that's in charge of all this. And he was talking about recent studies with higher ed and the prevailing feeling that educators in higher ed are having right now about AI is sadness. And that's different than it was even a year ago because we thought that we could convince students by giving them the why behind learning and why they don't want to circumvent learning objectives with AI and all this. And he said on this program that the students didn't listen. But see, I wanted to call in and say that's not what's happening, in my opinion. It's not that the students aren't listening. It's that they have practice in an hour and they're overwhelmed, and they have skill gaps. And we're asking them to do things. And when they, make it this far and they have these skill gaps and they've got practice in an hour and nobody has really told them how to use it, they're just using it. And we're all playing from behind a little bit right now, I think. I think that a lot of schools are like Southwestern, maybe that right now it really is a professor by professor, how they want to approach the use of AI in their class and how they're teaching students to use it. But it worries me a little bit because no, I'm not saying anyone's wrong. It's just that we are not on the same page. I'm an outsider in terms of being the librarian, and I'm in lots of different, um, I work with students and I hear the way a lot of professors are talking about it, and it's just not quite on the same page at times because nobody is on the same page right now. Nobody knows what the page is. We're all trying really hard to wrap our heads around what this means. So I wish that I had a really good advice here. I'll tell you from the library perspective how it's changed things. Using generative AI as a discovery tool to find academic articles and good research, that's just what the students are doing. The good news is, however long ago, you'd get a lot of hallucinations and a lot of worrisome stuff, but honestly, it's getting better every day. It's been a while since I've really encountered a big problem in that regard. I mean, you look something up and it gives you links and you can follow it through to see if it's accurate. It can just be a really cool tool. But,
So, and Emily, in that regard, you've done quite a bit of online literacy work with students and tried to make many resources available, I think. And are you still offering a course in, is that?
Yes, I teach,
Okay.
It's called AI-powered digital literacy. And the focus of it is how to navigate information in this new universe. For example, our lesson yesterday was on AI slop, how AI, everything is being flooded with all this AI content. And there's cottage industries out there of how to mass produce it and dump it. I mean, 80%, that's not the official percentage, but something like that of Pinterest is now AI generated fake content. Just so, yes. And in fact, I was talking to my class yesterday and talking about how they really are wanting more guidelines because none of them want to cheat. We don't have any cheaters here at Southwestern. We just have confusion. You know what I mean? People, they want more direction. And in fact, we talked as a class that maybe what we would do is together, the 16 students that are in there, maybe we come up with what we think it ought to be at Southwestern and kind of start the conversation of what students would like, that to look like. It's
So
very
that kind of
difficult.
gives them the guide rails within to operate and consistency from course to course,
Absolutely.
faculty member to faculty member.
And I know that I'm getting a little outside the lines of librarian. I'm really speaking more as just an educator here. But everyone agrees, anyone articles you listen to, everyone is realizing that everything is going to have to be rethought in how we're achieving those learning objectives. The days of being able to deliver it in a certain kind of way, it's just AI has changed the game. And I think that educators everywhere are trying to figure out how to restructure lessons to achieve the learning objective kind of AI proof, So I don't know. In terms of how the library works, I mean, even just in our digital library, we have for example, our JSTOR collection, and we offer students access to everything JSTOR offers. And if they log in and make an account, there's an AI assistant there, and it is pretty cool. You can pull up an article that you think may be relevant to your research and have a conversation with AI about that article, and it will tell you, this concept, it goes into it on page 64 or whatever. I mean, it really makes the whole research process so much easier. Or are we compromising the learning by not making them dig through all that? I mean, I don't know. We need some brain scientists to come work with us too on how to navigate this. This is a big topic. I feel like I'm kind of all over the place, but it's all over the place right now.
So reflective of how we're all feeling, maybe, Emily, but certainly something that on campus there is a lot of discussion right now about the utilization of AI, and even within divisions. I know a lot of division chairs have been having a lot of conversation, and then that's trickling, of course, into the faculty meetings. And Emily, you attend those faculty meetings and report out about what's going on in the library and what your recommendations are. So there is a through line. It's just everybody hasn't settled into maybe a consistent approach. And of course, I think it's going to take a little time for people to develop some comfort around that. I know that one specific example is the communications, English, computer science division. They were doing some work with a faculty team from KU to work on their curriculum and come up with some ideas around AI. And Emily, I know you sat in on some of those discussions. Were there any great nuggets from that you might?
I was honestly involved early on, and I don't know where they ended up with that. Yeah. But I do know I recently did a series of workshops in one of the classes, and there's a lot of return to the blue book, just the old fashioned. And I completely understand why we're doing that. I will say, as the mother of a dyslexic kid, that worries me, because if you put a blue book and a pencil in my son's hand, it is not an even playing field. So it sometimes feels like it's a hall of mirrors, and we're all trying to find our way out, and we think we see the way out, and then we bump our face into it and we realize it wasn't. I mean, it's just difficult, but I know that there are a lot of really smart, dedicated educators who are spending a lot of time thinking about this right now, both at your school, John, at our school, at, all over. In terms of staying ahead of the students, I read an article recently that talked about how I don't know if they used the word tsunami, but that's what I was envisioning when I was reading it, that it's coming. And any professional, basically, that hasn't played around with generative AI is going to get caught off guard, and that it really needs to be happening. And in fact, it said playing with the upgraded version so you understand the capability. I believe that no matter what our ethical or philosophical objection to a lot of aspects of AI, I'm kind of coming down on, we have a professional responsibility to know what this thing is, because we're guiding students into the future. So, a year ago, a faculty member and I came together to offer an opportunity to faculty we were going to offer the 10 people who applied an upgraded version of ChatGPT for 6 months so they can play with it. And I think we got one person that asked for it. But I think if we offered it today, we would have a very different response. I mean, that was a year ago. So,
if I may,
yeah.
I think I will say something. Early on, I said I won't have anything to contribute. As much as anything, it's kind of an observation. For Emily, I am profoundly encouraged by all that you are saying. I didn't quite know what to expect. I was hoping there'd be a lot of people on this particular thing. And like you said, Katie, others may look at it later. I did my research for my doctoral dissertation in the mid-1970s. We didn't have internet. We didn't have squat. You phoned somebody and they didn't have a clue as to where to go. I traveled places to look in card catalogs. Things have been, of course, radically different now. You talked about staying ahead of students. That's a virtual impossibility, and has been for the last several decades that I've been aware of anything. It is still today the person who can't figure out what to do with their handheld device that we refer to as a phone, and they don't know which button to push. I simply say, go out to the street, find a 12-year-old, and they'll tell you. Staying ahead of them, I think we'll do well to stay with them and enter a partnership of discovery together.
Right.
The thing that always concerns me about stuff that I see on the internet, I'm not doing active research into my field any longer. I do research into other things that simply interest me. And it's interesting to go online and look and see what's there. And to me, one of the great challenges is helping. You addressed this earlier, and I was curious about it. One of the great challenges is to discern what is real and what is something that somebody has simply fabricated, put out there as real. How do you tell the difference? And how does a student who really does have not just an interest, but a need to be able to sort through things? You said you can, I can't quote you directly, but you said you can go out there and you can sort through, and there are a lot of things, and then you can find out what's real and what's not. That's no small challenge in my mind. But I'll kind of butt out of this now, other than to say everything you're saying is profoundly encouraging to me.
I'm so glad to hear you say that. And honestly, your comments are encouraging to me, because I feel like for some reason this week, I've kind of been letting it get to me a little bit. Just it's so big and so many changes and so many uncertainties. And I have a 20-year-old, an 18-year-old, and a 17-year-old that are all going to go try to get a job soon. And it just seems a little daunting. So I really appreciate your comments. Yes, in fact, in our class, we're talking a lot about how to navigate information. And believe it or not, being able to do what you just said starts with helping students understand the difference between information. You know, we talk about, they don't understand a lot of times the difference between news and opinion, or, you know, advertising and entertainment. I mean, it's sorting through what all that looks like and being savvy and being able to look at something and determine its primary purpose. And it all starts there. And they need to understand what journalism actually is, and that there are people that are following a code of ethics. And, you know, we started there. So now when we end up just yesterday, I mean, this AI stuff kind of falls in my mind into camps. It's just the slop. It's the fake pictures. It's the fake videos. It's the cat wearing the sombrero that's in a melodrama and then selling you a $17.99 program on how to make slop. I mean, it's that stuff. But then it's also, for example, I use this with the students because it had just come up on my Facebook feed, a picture of Hillary Clinton pulling on Jeffrey Epstein's tie, laughing, and a bunch of my friends saying, "Oh, I thought you didn't know him." And so there's that kind of content too. So you're wondering, is that a real picture or is it a fake picture? And how do I know the difference? So what we're talking about with students, for example, yesterday, we pulled up some pictures. One student pulled up, I wanted everyone to practice this before they left. One student pulled up LeBron James wearing like a French maid outfit. Is that a real picture? Did he really wear that? So I taught them how to do a basic reverse image search. And there's lots of ways to do it, but I showed them the way that I think is the easiest and the most effective. And so with just 30 seconds of effort, you know, you right click, do this, and then a lot of times you'll have a very credible fact checking site that is way already. I mean, those pictures that are like the Jeffrey Epstein and the LeBron James, Snoops has already looked at that. So you can go read the history of how that picture came about. So in 30 seconds, we were able to determine that both of those pictures were fabricated. And the other thing that you teach them how to see, and it was present in both of those pictures, there's usually something wrong with it. There'll be an extra finger or something weird. So you have to learn how to be a critical thinker, a critical viewer of looking at that. You know, those missiles, is that the same smoke shape that each of them is making? That's a fabricated picture. So you just, you know, reverse image search, being critical in the way that you're looking at things. And for a lot of it, that's the best we have. And there are a lot of efforts right now to watermark photographs and fake content, and that is done sometimes, but the point is it's not regulated. People have to kind of want to be a good actor to do it. And just to if you don't know the source of something, open up a new tab and Google that source and see what credible people are saying about them. So it's a complicated world, but at the end of the day, taking a moment to not click anything and turn your brain on for a second is the fundamental lesson there for all of us.
If I may interrupt one more time.
Yeah.
How to stay, excuse me while I try and figure out which sentence I have in my brain here that I actually want to go into. One of the things that for a long time has, I think, plagued us is the issue of visual versus thinking, accepting too much of just a picture or a movie or whatever it is as being the reality and as a shortcut to actually doing thinking, real critical thinking. What you say, yes, there are these ways to discern, look at the clues, click on whatever. That's getting out of my my thing there about clicking on stuff. But I think it becomes more challenging all the time. Things are being created that are for whatever purpose, really nefarious purpose or attempt at some sort of bizarre humor. And it occupies so much of our time trying to figure out this, that, or the other thing. Is the smoke plume, is the maid's dress, all that stuff.
Right.
I think the great challenge is to get our students and ourselves focused on the things that we really need to be involved with to advance the good things in our lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
I will say for something that's kind of hopeful in this regard, I have a 14-year-old, or I'm sorry, 15-year-old now, and she's kind of adopted this sort of, and it's frankly kind of sad, but like from the literacy perspective, I appreciate it. She's kind of got this like trust nothing I see on the internet. Like I start with distrust and then I prove it correct. And I as for like a 15-year-old, I really think that's pretty positive. And I think it's probably a signal that this generation is gonna, because they're brought up in a world where they don't know what's real and fake, what image is constructed for them to see and what one is reality. It's going to create, they're going to be better at this, at discerning truth from fiction, I think, than we are, at least Mary's generation. But anyway.
They have to be better at it.
And the other thing that she really takes great joy in is pointing out when something is AI and you've shared it or you've seen it somewhere. She's like, that's AI. They like being able to point that fact out, that she's sort of found the fake. So anyway, I think it's an ongoing challenge for sure.
It's a work. The flip side of that, though, is take the Minneapolis protests. There were images of a protester getting shot that people weren't believing because they were afraid it was fake. We're in a whole new world of that kind of biting us too, because we have always lived in a world where we could be shown a picture that holds a mirror up to ourselves. I had a professor in grad school write a book about this, that he called them limit figures. When Rodney King got beat up, when the prisoners at Abu Ghraib prison, when the soldiers were photographed with those prisoners, there are moments that we see visual images that make us stop and consider our values and our ethics and who we are as Americans. And I worry, a lot of people are worried, is that no longer the case because it's just a fake image, whether it's fake or not?
True. Yeah.
True. I don't know what the future holds with that, but I think that we probably need to be like your daughter. It's fake until proven real. Has to probably be the way that we're all approaching things now. And that's a very strange dynamic shift for us, probably not for the young people, but what's that consequence going to be? I don't know.
The other potential value, I think, is actually for journalism, because I think increasing values placed on seeking out content from trusted journalistic sources because, they're not fabricating. Although in some cases we've seen that they've gotten took by AI too. So, but the hope is that they're putting the energy into vetting in ways that we can't. So anyway, we could probably talk about this for hours upon hours. And maybe what we need to do is have a sort of an AI summit or conversation that includes alumni. Certainly we've had some speakers on campus, some lectures talking about this with faculty and talking about it in our broader community. And maybe we need to open that up to our alumni community because obviously we all are thinking about and trying to make assessment for what the reality of AI means in our world and the way we encounter information. So
I would love that.
Yeah. And so, Emily, I want to give you a chance to just talk about, you mentioned there's been some conversation about the reduction in books, and obviously we've talked about what other kinds of resources you're making available to students. But talk about traffic into our library. Like, why would a student come to our library, and when they come to our library, what do they find there?
One of our goals, and I always quote you, Katie, from my job interview, because you said something that stuck with me that day, that Deets Library should be the liberal arts ethos of the campus. It needs to be a center, a social center, and we are working really hard to make that so. I'm going to be honest, a lot of the students come for the coffee shop because it's awesome. We serve Starbucks. It's a great space, but we have, there's music playing. There's a vibe when you come in Deets that we love, and I think it's catching on because our traffic is a lot heavier. We have times of the day that it's, from 1 to 4. If you're in the library, you might think it's kind of dead, but boy, 7:30 to 11 is packed, and 5 o'clock to about 10 p.m. is packed. It's a cool space. But honestly, if you're using the library to find resources, you're using your one-to-one laptop. So they can be sitting in their dorm rooms and accessing our collection. But we still have a lot of students that like to come study here and study together. We have private rooms. We have, believe it or not, students love whiteboards. So we've increased our whiteboards, and it's fun to come in the morning because you'll see, a cell that somebody has diagrammed a cell or some kind of flow chart of something on all the whiteboards. But we're proud of the progress we've made.
Yeah, and I mean, just observationally, I will say, in the last 24 months or so that you've been with us, it's definitely been, I think, before it was sort of happenstance as students came into the space, but I think it's much more intentional, and it does feel like, I mean, I was in there in an evening. I stopped by. I had some other event on campus, and I had parked down by the library, and I just went in to just kind of see what was going on. And you aren't lying; the tables were full. And It was a buzz in there. It was not a quiet space. It was not a library like I might have encountered when I was a student, but they were obviously together, and there were books out and stuff was happening. Laptops were everywhere, and so they're using the space in a way maybe they hadn't previously, and so that's great. And the other comment I would say is, Ashley and I manage the social media accounts for the college, and so I'm often on Instagram, and I see a lot of our student stories, and I see a lot of them posting images from inside the library. They're sharing stories, or just the other day I saw a student named Emma. She was in the stacks, and she had her lunch out and her laptop, and I could tell that was a typical thing for her. She was going to find a spot to study quietly in the stacks, and I thought, I'm glad to be able to find your own little nook on campus that you feel like is yours. I think about my experience in that, and I had my spot, and so I'm glad that that's still a reality for our students. And I think, whether or not the students are accessing the stacks for the books, the sort of the environmental cue that is to live amongst books, I think is important. And so I'm glad that we still, our collection still allows that kind of place for students to inhibit.
Well, I agree. Oh, go ahead.
So I was just gonna say, one of the things you've done to bring more life into the library is some of the interesting programming that you've got going on. So I wanted you to highlight some of that.
Yeah, well, one of our main goals is for enrichment, not only for students but community members. But we've started kind of inspired by part of our motto about light. But we have a lighthouse series that's once a month over the noon hour, and it's an opportunity for a passion project, basically from any faculty or staff. We had a professor do visual poetry workshop once. We had a workshop from one of our psychology professors on how to tell if somebody's in a mental health crisis. I did a workshop on APA formatting, and it was not well attended. I was so surprised. But we have something very exciting happening this month. Next Tuesday, Larry Hatteberg is going to, in our Lighthouse series, meet with students over the lunch hour and just have a very informal conversation about how it can be daunting to try to find your calling, but life is a series of yeses and a series of experiences that lead you to the next thing. And, I really look forward to that. And then we have a ticketed event that night, and it's sold out. And these are my partners here on that event, and we're really excited. In fact, Larry called me yesterday. See, Larry, we're on a first name basis now.
Congrats.
Larry called me yesterday.
Just a quick for John and Steve, who may not know, Larry Hatteberg is a longtime journalist. He was born in Winfield. He's an award-winning journalist who worked at a station in Wichita forever and ever. So locally, he's very well known and revered. He had a series that he called Hatteberg's People. He's a extremely talented photojournalist, and in 1962 he was a senior in high school when Eleanor Roosevelt came to campus, and he said yes to coming to take photos of her on campus throughout the day. And so that spurned for him an interest in sort of photojournalism that became truly his calling. And so he's going to come to campus and show those images, which are pretty amazing. And then, because he hadn't developed the whole roll. So this all happened because he stumbled across a roll of film that had kind of gotten lost, and he developed that roll and found all the images that he hadn't published from 1962 of Eleanor Roosevelt bopping around Southwestern and Winfield. And so this has launched us into a connection point with him and a greater discussion about, vocation and calling and how you figure out what your place is in the world, which is a great conversation to have on a campus like ours. So.
And his wife, who evidently tends to skip some of these because she's heard him speak before, actually wants to come. The student who sparked that initially called Larry and asked him if he had any photographs that got all this started, she's going to be here. So it's going to be a good event. So anyway, that's one of our programs that's been, I think it's going pretty well. Something that I wanted to ask, of course, I don't know, neither of you are local, but I would like to start something that really focuses on alumni and community members, because I know there's so much nostalgia for the time you spent in Deets Library, and it really hadn't changed a lot in the stacks, for a long time. And I know, I mean, the library's open and alumni and community can come in here, but they really don't a lot. And I wonder kind of why. So I'm thinking maybe if we had Friday nights, for example, because we usually close at 5 p.m., maybe if we stayed open on Friday nights and the community members would know that they could be in the stacks kind of without bothering students. Or I don't really get a sense of what the barriers are there. So do you all have any feedback on what alumni and community might like from Deets?
Well, I was in there last year because I had my spot when I was there.
Good.
And I was always upset if somebody was in my spot.
Right. You turn the corner
and I love
somebody's
that
sitting
library. But I was there with a bunch of my buddies, and we come every year for homecoming, because we're all kind of spread out different years. But I think that's the time to do it. I mean, that's when we were all in it and checked it out, was at like homecoming. and you can get, a lot of alumni in there because a lot of people, we loved it there. I mean, it's a great building. It's just a spectacular building. And so I mean, that would be my suggestion is that at least you'll have alumni from out and, from not right there locally, but you've got a lot of us that still come in. And we come in every year and so yeah, I mean that's one of the things I would do. And I also want to say I'm glad that Larry or Steve chimed in because of the whole collaborative thing with students on AI. I mean, that's one of the things I'll take back to our administrators, and we've talked about that as well. Um, and my wife is at Missouri State, which is a very large university here and the policy thing is another thing that I'm interested in. My sister-in-law is on the board there, as I know that and so um, you know, I think we do need to come up with policies. Right now, at both of our institutions, the policy is up to us as professors. It's like you can use AI in the class, you can use some AI in the class, or you can't use any. And, my wife well, she teaches teachers, she teaches graduate level teachers. And so she's in the education department, whereas I'm in science. And so the other thing I would say is that it is very discipline specific. I was reading the Neuron this morning, and, programming, programmers, anybody can program now. And these things are becoming very sophisticated. And you've got graphic artists where now that you can generate whatever you want. And the cheating thing, one of the things I have done was I made my students, on my online make videos of themselves talking to a patient. Well, we've had trouble with that because now they can now generate an AI image of themselves giving a presentation, and we've had that happen. So I mean that's how sophisticated that it is getting, and so I mean it is very very sophisticated. And what you said is the tsunami's coming. The tsunami's here.
Yeah.
It's here, and I couldn't agree with you more that I think it's a professional obligation that we know it, and I think Steve is also right. We're not going to get ahead of it, but we have to be at least equal with them.
Yeah.
And but the tsunami's here, and my wife and I have obviously deep discussions about this because she's not she's not up on it, and so I just don't think you can put your head in the sand because it is so sophisticated now, and it's going to depend upon the discipline. I mean, I have investments in AI in medicine because it's going to be wonderful for medicine. Is it going to be wonderful for teaching medical professionals? I don't know about that yet. I'm skeptical. I'm very skeptical of that at this point. I just had to say, I have students now that are doing job interviews at our hospitals, and their interviews AI. It's a bot. They're doing interviews to get to a person, so they're using bots to screen our students to even get a job. And then how do you address that? And then I have to write a recommendation today. And I wrote a recommendation not long ago, and when I went to turn it in, it says, if you use AI on this, we will not accept your recommendation. And I had used ChatGPT to write part of the recommendation. So I had to go back and completely change that. And so there are a lot of complications and things. And so I know you threw it out there, but you have a lot of really smart alumni like Steve, and I think you should have a summit on AI because we have and most of the alumni, we love that college, and I think that if you promoted it correctly, you could have a hell of a summit. So
That sounds
I'll
like a
stop
wonderful
talking.
idea.
Well, I mean,
If
I
I
think
may,
just oh, sorry, go ahead, Steve.
if I may, I know we're probably running out of time, and I don't mean to make this the conclusion to this lovely event, but I don't know Larry Hatterberg. I've never met him, but I'm perfectly aware of what he did, if not in toto, at least. I mean, you said he was a senior in 1962. I was a senior in high school in 1963.
Mm.
Grew up for my first 21 years in life in Wellington and then in Winfield. So I'm aware. I mean, he's an iconic character in his field in that region. The idea of bringing him and others who can bring an historical perspective and have a world of experience for people there to experience, I think is brilliant. I've been, after Southwestern, I did a master's degree at Louisiana State, 4 years in the Air Force during Vietnam, and then a doctorate at the University of Oklahoma, and then came to the University of Kansas. And I was then involved in higher education as a teacher, an administrator, and a producer, and so forth for 40 years. I'm not going to be using AI. I'm interested in it for a variety of reasons. But I think the important thing here, let me talk about libraries for just a second. For those many years I was involved when I taught at KU, and then I went to the University of the Pacific. And one of the reasons I went to the University of the Pacific is because it's significantly larger than Southwestern, but the values there were shared values with what I learned and then lived with for the rest of my life at Southwestern College. As an evaluator for the National Association of Schools of Music, when I was at KU, I evaluated places that are large universities. At Pacific, they were medium-sized universities. I was never on a team to do a small school like Southwestern. But one of the things that we looked at when we did those, we looked at everything. We talked with students, we talked with faculty, we talked with head administrators. We examined libraries, all the files. And to watch now and to watch over time and to see the evolution of libraries as a quiet place that had books in a card file or whatever those things were called. I could never quite figure out how to work those things. And to see them now becoming, as you have just described, Emily, as really a center of activity and of relationships, I think is a profoundly wonderful thing. In an age which has been here for a long time of an evolution of people becoming more and more isolated because of electronic devices, to have electronic devices incorporated in a facility such as a library that is rich with books, that is rich with people, that is rich with even cups of coffee, I think is an absolutely brilliant thing and bodes well for the future of education. So again, Emily, congrats. I don't know what they're paying you, but they ought to double it tomorrow.
Well, I appreciate that. Your words are, I mean a lot to me, and I appreciate that. And, I guess I feel like I really do kind of, since Katie's right here, I want to say that a lot of what's happening at Deets right now, I think started with people like Katie and her vision for what this library could be, and JK. And, it's been a group effort, but I'm really thrilled at what's happening and really appreciate what you've said. And Larry Hatterberg coming here was Katie's idea too. So she's kind of one of our superheroes behind the scenes. So
that's too much credit for me, but I guess I just really believe in the importance. It's such it should be the heart of our campus and of academic curiosity. And we should celebrate that. And I also agree with you, Steve, like a college campus should be not void of isolation, but there should be plenty of spaces where you can learn in community, and that's part of that residential experience, is offering that, a richness of that to students. And so when we hired Emily, I think there was sort of a collective joy on campus, because she's bringing the right energy to the position, and her openness to what the library can be for our students is really positive, and certainly something to celebrate. And that's why I'm really glad she came to the coffee chat today, so she could talk about that and share that with you all a little bit. And I think there's a lot of potential for ways we can engage conversations at a larger level with our alumni base moving forward, and how the library can serve our alumni as well. So I want to thank you guys all. We definitely have bumped up against time, so thanks for sticking with us. And like I said, we'll be sharing this on YouTube. So if you are so engaged, you could share the link with someone who you might think might. Go ahead.
And reach out anytime. Call me anytime. I would love to talk further about anything.
Right. And I was gonna call to attention, one other great resource that lives in the library is our Center for Career and Vocation. And so we have one of the things that's on my list is to do a coffee chat with the Career and Vocation Director, Carrie Keller, and to talk about the different programming she offers for students. And again, that's another reason for students to engage the life of the library. So, there you go. Yep. Save Emily's number, and
call me sometime. Anytime.
I always feel better when I talk to somebody who's in in charge of running a library. So anyway, thanks, Emily. Thanks, Ashley, Steve, and John. If there's anything you all need from us, you know where to find us. And have a great weekend.
Enjoy your time at the festival tomorrow, Katie.
I will do my best.
I want to apologize. The Kansas City event is not on the 16th. It is the 19th. You were correct, Steve. I was looking at April.
Oh, geez.
Well, as John said earlier, I'm really a smart guy.
There you go. The keeper. Anyway, we hope we get a good. We hope we have a great alumni turnout for that event in Kansas City. That's the next thing we've kind of got on the docket. And of course, I should also say Hall of Fame weekend is coming up. So Founders Weekend, April 17th through the 18th. So we'll celebrate Halls of Fame, and we also have a builder benefit live auction and dinner that Saturday evening. And so there's a lot on the calendar for us in the next couple months. So all right.
I just checked
thanks,
this
guys.
morning.
Thanks, guys.
Publish the schedule for the Founders Day weekend as soon as you can, so I know what's going on.
Right. Yeah. We will do it.
I'll email it to you.
Okay.
There you go.
Thank you.
Yep. Bye-bye. Thanks, Emily.
All right. Thank you.